The number one thing that men fear. Top 5 challenges men face and don't talk about. Number 5, emotional and mental health. June is Mental Health Month, Men's Mental Health Month. 5th most popular or most common challenge that men face is mental health. A lot of that is because we're not prepared for it. As men, we're not instructed on how to deal with emotions. Suck it up, get over it, push through, don't be a pussy. Pretty much the bulk of our instruction. We're also increasingly isolated. Men are left to their own devices to deal with problems by themselves. We're not meant to be alone. We're not loners. A lot of us like to pretend to be on TV, but most of us aren't. We're social creatures. We need social support. Number 4, personal growth. Most men want to get better, do better, be better, but they don't know how. This comes back again to the lack of social interaction. Historically, we'd have families, and not just families, but entire communities that we could learn from. Our opportunities for growth were relatively limited within those communities, but we could grow. We had some kind of model that we could learn from, and from that model, we could expand. Now, with the internet, we've actually got far more opportunities. The competition is a lot higher, but the opportunities are a lot greater. A lot of times we seek to grow through training, but training is only a small part of what it takes to become better, what it takes to grow. You actually have to change your habits. There's a pedagogy, which means methodology or philosophy of learning. It's called the 70-20-10. 10% of learning comes from reading, 20% of learning comes from watching someone else do it, and 70% of learning comes from doing it yourself. In my personal experience, I would say it's more like 20-50-20-10, where 10% comes from reading, 20% comes from watching someone else do it, 50% comes from doing it yourself, and the last 20% comes from actually teaching someone else to do it. By teaching someone else to do it, it forces you to learn something succinctly enough to express it and teach it to others. Number 3, motivation. This is why guys like David Goggins are so popular. It's not that David Goggins is bad. He's cracked the code and he knows how to motivate himself. And through learning to motivate himself, he's learned to motivate others. We think motivation is going to come from some external force. It's something that we can get in a bottle, a pill, or a bag, or a speech. Those things can happen. You can drink a lot of C4s and get real jacked up and go do some stuff. But long term, motivation has got to come from within. And it's got to be more than just some feeling that you get temporarily. There has to be a reason why you're doing it. And that reason why has to be bigger than your reasons to not do it. Number 2, relationships. This isn't just with the ladies. Most men wouldn't admit it, but they crave relationships just like everyone else. We are social creatures. We are not meant to be alone. And for some men, the loneliness is crushing. This is Men's Mental Health Month. And depending on who you ask, between 1 in every 10 minutes and 1 in every 2 minutes, a man loses the battle. A man stops getting up. A man makes a permanent decision. And a lot of this comes from lack of relationships. Because they feel alone, because they don't have anyone to talk to, because they don't understand that they're not alone. And then as long as men have been alive, we've been going through the same things. And number 1, the number one thing that men fear, failure. The fear of failure is the most common fear that there is. It's not stage fright or heights, it's failure. We're taught that failure is something that you can't ever do. You can't ever get it wrong. In school, you have to do it by yourself and you're going to get a grade and don't get an F. It's not how life works. You can get an F in life, you can fail in life, but it's not the end. Failure is part of the path. It is not something to be avoided. Now, you can't fail forever. If you keep trying, even though you might fail several times, but you keep getting up and you keep trying, you will get it. You will get it. Michael Jordan got kicked off the high school basketball team. Henry Ford filed bankruptcy 7 times. There's an old saying that a master has failed more than the apprentice has tried. To do anything, you're going to fail. And that's okay. It's part of the process. Do not fear it. Top 5 fears of men. Number 5, mental. Number 4, personal growth. Number 3, motivation. Number 2, relationships. The number 1 fear of men that prevents them from doing things in life, failure.